On the 29th of September, Microsoft in conjunction with Asobo gave us a development update for Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's been some 2 months since the last update prior to the Xbox release. It was streamed live on Twitch and was over 2 hours long. Here's my under 12-minute summary. Link in the notes below to the full session, which is now posted on YouTube. During the update, we got information on the upcoming Sim Update 6, the prospect of perhaps a new strategy for fixing the longer-term bugs, and last but certainly not least, an update on VR. Welcome to the Sim Hanger channel. My name's Mark, and let's get started. Sebastian, the CEO of Asobo, kicked off the update, and he acknowledged that the tree draw distance is still not right and is going to be pushed out to an LOD of 14. Following a number of recent optimizations, they believe they're able to do this without any sacrifice on performance. Seb went on to say that they continue to work on the flight model within the sim, both as a combination of real-world tests as well as expanding the measurable parameters, and these will be spread over Sim Update 6 and 7. He went on to highlight, and I think this is an important point, that these expanded parameters will be available to third-party developers. This will help them not only to initially create more realistic flight models for their aircraft, but also to adjust parameters thereafter if they think something's wrong. This will allow for a more accurate calculation for things such as drag when flaps are deployed, the aerodynamic impact relative to your angle of attack, and ground effect on the aircraft. New code has been written to measure the center of aerodynamics, lift and pressure, and measurable separately on the wing and the aircraft as a whole. Prompted by the upcoming release of the Reno Air Races, rendering has been optimized when flying close to the ground, in effect providing a faster draw. New parameters have been made available in the flight model to improve the sharpness of movement for these upcoming aircraft. This will not affect the current range of default aircraft, with perhaps the exception of the Pitts. An unexpected and somewhat exciting development is the inclusion of wake turbulence. This will not be a full implementation, just a first step, and will affect only small aircraft initially, not the airliners. And once again, the addition of the Reno Air Races has prompted this. Wake turbulence during this type of flying is a very real factor. For the larger aircraft, this is still in development and planned for a release in 2022. One aspect of this that I was pleased about is apparently wake turbulence will also be effective in multiplayer. Partially linked to the tree draw distance I mentioned earlier, some work has been done on the night lighting, and that they've increased the render distance. The picture you're looking at the moment is New York at 30,000 feet. This optimization has resulted in more lights and visible at a further distance, and this improvement will also apply to photogrammetry. Asobo have said that there may be a small performance impact as a result of these changes, but that impact will be negligible. Well, time will tell. And now here's one I didn't see coming. There's going to be a change to the slider used to define terrain detail. The Ultra setting is currently 200% and it will remain at 200%. But if your PC and graphics card have got the grunt, well, you can move that up to 400%. At 400%, even those with a 3090 are going to be sweating a little. Matt from Working Title gave us an update on the NXI mod for the G1000, which is currently available for free on the marketplace and is destined to replace the default G1000 in the not-too-distant future. Perhaps not ready by the time Sim Update 6 releases, but shortly thereafter he hopes to have something representing the stock G1000, which will include coupled RNAV and all the other IFR procedures as well as flight planning. Other work being undertaken by Working Title include work on the NXI implementation for the CJ4. They're going to start their conversion for the G3000 and GNS 430 and 530. Other projects on the agenda for next year include work on the G3X and flight planning for the 787 and 747, and they'll be working with ATC to make it more integrated within the systems. Turning now to VR, it looks like we're going to have to wait till Sim Update 7 before we get controller compatibility. Controllers that will be supported are the Windows Mixed Reality controllers, Oculus Touch, Valve Index and HTC Vive. Information on the amount of interaction is limited, and I really hope that we can get a transport or teleport function, as we have in X-Plane. It's hoped that the dancing reflections issue will be dealt with in Sim Update 6. And that they will also address a number of the longer term and more well known and reported issues. I suspect we're going to have to wait till Sim Update 8 before we get a thorough bug fix for VR. Moving along now to DX12, and what date will this be implemented? The current plans are for the end of the year, but interestingly, the adoption of DX12 will be voluntary or optional. They don't expect massive problems through the adoption of DX12, but if anybody has a problem, they're able to revert back to DX11, with a planned full transition to DX12 during the course of the first half of 2022. And why? Well, lessons have been learned from Sim Update 5, and a more cautious approach is being adopted for any major changes going forward. And that brings us around quite nicely to the issue of bug fixes. During the Q&A session, there were a lot of questions related to this and how things were prioritized, and basically how were Microsoft going to deal with the situation going forward. This is what Jörg Newman from Microsoft had to say.
So we artificially sort of curved down the bug fixing in the months leading up to Xbox, which then meant the overall bug count actually started growing. And I think I want to say it was Chris from Working Title who said, I really like that idea. He said, hey, why don't we focus Sim Update 8 on bug fixing? And you heard already Seb wants to do helicopter stuff, and that's awesome, and Seb should do Seb stuff. But I think having a Sim Update that is really focusing on fixing just bugs is healthy, is what we should do. And I talked to colleagues of mine in Rare. They make a game called Sea of Thieves. They had an update to Sea of Thieves. They were in the same state. They put content in and fixes this, that, or the other. But at some point they said, we're just going to fix stuff. Like an entire section of like 2-3 months, all they did was fix. And that Sim Update was, or their update was by far the most appreciated by the community. So I seriously think that's the right way forward. We can probably halve our bug count if we really focus on it.
Yeah.
But that will mean some other stuff comes a little bit later. But I think when I listen to the thread, people are like, hey, it's crashing, this bug, this bug, this bug. Okay, so instead of just keep turning the feature crank, I think we should step back, fix the bugs, get it really focused again on stability, and really just lowering the bug count. And then I think you'll have something cleaner. And that I think is the right next step. And that would be sort of early 22, we would do that.
Yeah.
Using Microsoft Flight Simulator on multiple screens was discussed, and their work is in the pipeline. Expect something 2022. You're going to have to wait till Sim Update 7 before the logbook stops popping up during shutdown, something that's really is annoying. And of course, the missing replay function was discussed. As Microsoft are producing promotional videos, they do have a working replay function within the sim. And whilst it's not perfect, they are considering releasing it as part of Sim Update 7. You'd be able to activate it via the dev mode, and at least then we would have something to work with in the interim. Not sure I fully get the reasons for all the delay. I mean, some of the third-party products are truly excellent, and they're available for free right now from flightsim.to. There was a fair amount of discussion regarding the weather system. I'm not going to cover that here in detail. In a nutshell, they're going to increase the frequency of weather updates into the sim, and meta information is going to be compiled so that it matches to Meta Blue. I think this is an ongoing project, and we'll see improvements more on a progressive basis than in one hit. Jörg Newman acknowledged there was a backlog of releases for the Xbox version, and that products were too slow to come to market, but things should improve fairly quickly now. I personally can't see any reason why PC and Xbox versions can't be released at the same time. Microsoft Asobo manage it when they release one of their planes. Those are the main points raised. I haven't been able to cover everything, but I think I've covered the main points. But before I go, one more interesting aspect was raised. The question was put to Jorg Newman, are you creating a pretty game? Are you producing a game and not a simulator? This is how he replied.
Our minds one iota. Like, this is a sim for simmers. There's no question about it. Now, maybe there's an interpretation in there somewhere, because I think there's also people that want to become simmers and they're not quite there yet. And we shouldn't slap the door in their faces, right? As a matter of fact, I think it's good for the hobby to bring more people in and to be friendly to them and make it elegant. And that's why we have checklists and tooltips and all these other things that core simmers probably don't need at all, because they're like, what is all this stuff? I already know all that. Leave me alone. But newcomers don't. And it's from my perspective, it's been really, really great to see. Not just the, I think some people are like, the Xbox crowd. It's not just that. It's kids. It's kids playing, like lots of them. That's what we want, like fundamentally. And so I think being tolerant about all that, I think is important. Does that mean we're not going to do core sim stuff? No, like you heard working title and Asobo was working on sim. The entire first part of the presentation was core sim. So we are absolutely determined to make this the best possible core sim it can be. Don't ever think we're confused here of what's important.
Personally, I couldn't agree more with Jorg. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you found this useful and informative. I'll see you again soon. Look after yourselves, take care, and bye for now.